As for my surname, or so you might have already found out that I am the non-native speaker teacher who has some experience back in Hungary, 8 years there, teaching English for monolingual Hungarian-speaking students. And then in the past year, I had the possibility to work for 3 institutions, 2 summer camps and 1 college here in Cork, teaching English for mixed groups, usually for Spanish and Italian students and some Pakistani students as well. I was also involved in exams, and later on I will talk about it, that was those exams that are usually not known here in Ireland because they are not focusing on the communicative approach or so, but much more on grammar, because in Central Europe we still really like teaching grammar and focus on grammar, and that's where I might have some good points, but whenever it comes to vocabulary or so, obviously I have some disadvantage. Okay, what made me think about this topic is that through my SATA Trainer Institute, the International House Budapest, I got involved to the non-native English speaker teachers group, and we give advice to each other, like which are the countries that really welcome non-native teachers and which are the ones that we should avoid, or how we should train ourselves more and more to be able to enter the competition with the native speakers themselves. Till now we have such supporters as Jeremy Harmer or David Christa himself, so I think that we are somewhere on a very good way. On the most well-known teaching English as a foreign language website, the TFL.com, 70% of the jobs are actually advertised for native speakers, and it's very interesting when we think about the fact that actually 80% of the English speakers use the English language as a lingua franca, which means that they don't use it with native speakers, but they use it with other non-native speakers. So possibly it can be an advantage if they have the possibility to learn English from also those who are not native speakers. Based on my own experience, usually about my summer camp experience, what I can say where I feel and where my students said that they actually had an advantage, that they were taught English by me, non-native speaker, was first of all, I have my own experience. So whenever I say that, oh, I understand that it's very difficult, I mean it. I still remember that the time when I was 11 and the first time I arrived home with a C-, because I just couldn't understand, like whenever there is do, does and doesn't, why I shouldn't put the extra S. And I was crying, and so, or just before my proficiency exam, I spent days and nights, and so with Thomson and Martinet and the phrasal verbs, and I thought that I'm actually like dying or so, but no, I had to do so because I really had to learn the language myself. And the other thing that we tend to forget, that you are the lucky ones who acquired the language. So you were brought up in the environment when English was spoken all the time. I was not. I was 8 when I started learning English, and I really had to start it from the very beginning. And in my mind, it's not the natural order how I could acquire the language, but actually in my mind, it's the course books, how it developed and developed and developed. So that's why maybe I can more understand them whenever they say that I don't actually get the point how you go from here to there. I think that in comparing things or so, maybe they can use my experience as well. better accuracy. Obviously it's not for everyone. But what can I say is, like I have already mentioned, that in Central Europe we are obsessed with grammar, seriously. So everything is about grammar. Till the 2000s or so, there were no communicative English lessons, there were no communicative type of IELTS or Cambridge exams. They were actually banned, and so because they were said to be too easy, as you didn't have to write five future tenses and so in one sentence, and so that's why I think that possibly I have a very good advantage in this one, that I was, and you could say that okay, but why it's good for the students? I think it always depends on what's the aim of the student, because we can have students who come here, obviously they want to talk to a native speaker, they want to be involved in communication, and so, but we can have those students who are here for 3 months and so, and then possibly go back to Central Europe, or they go back to any other countries where the examinations are so different, and maybe it's a good point to accommodate our classes and so for the needs of the students. And that's where I think that possibly you could involve a non-native speaker teacher as well to help those lessons. Obviously, as I said, I learned the grammar. I have already spoken to many of my native speaking teacher colleagues, and they said that actually during their all formal school studies, they have never ever had grammar lessons. And it was so strange for me that this year, when I worked with 17 native speaker colleagues, and I was the only non-native one, for my greatest surprise, and they said that how lucky I am because for being a non-native one and for being able to understand grammar the way the students understand that. And I was like, okay, well, thanks for that. I really didn't think about that one, that I'm in such a lucky and advantageous position, but now I will think about it differently. Okay, just in connection with the grammar, and so how I realized is I had a good feeling about grading my language. This summer there was a group of students and we had 3 groups, 1A1 and 2A2, but very low level. And we were mixing the groups, the teacher were swapping. And I worked with 2 native speaking teachers, 2 guys, and they obviously before going to the class we were talking about, like, okay, whenever you go to my class they are this level, you can talk about this or that, so give some advice. And then they said that, well, unfortunately what I can say is that they are not very talkative. It's very difficult to ask a question that they answer. Okay, I said, okay, well, let's try. I got into the class and then I just started talking and so on. Then it was the cutest moment ever that there was a guy at the back, totally bored, playing with his phone, maybe just looking for some words or so, and then he just shouted, "Teacher, I understand you." And then after that it turned out that the problem was that they really had something to tell, but for 45 minutes they didn't have any clue what the teacher was talking about. And it's usually the problem of the freshly graduated teachers, because they don't have the experience. But it was so nice. And then after the classes we discussed, and I told them that, guys, maybe it would be better to use very simple questions. And then after 2 days or so, they said, like, oh my goodness, they can speak. And I said, like, yes, they can speak. So it's so easy, but you have to realize it yourself as well. And then comes my last thing. I'm not sure about this one, if I'm right, like more understandable accent or so. But what I wanted to tell with this one is actually that there were several researches saying that students are not interested in the accent of the teacher. The students are interested in the skills of the teacher, the proficiency of the teacher, and they don't mind if it's an American accent, if it's Black English vernacular, Geordie, Corkonian, or whatever, because they tend to think that everybody who speaks fluent English is a native one. My A1 class got to know that I am not a non-native one teacher only at the very last day, because till then, for them it was like, oh my goodness, she's speaking and she's asking and she knows things about Ireland, and so she must be local. And then whenever it was about pronouncing Irish names and so on, I said like, I'm sorry, but I actually can't do so. Then they said like, oh my goodness, you are not Irish. No. And I said that like, not everyone who speaks fluent English or so is a native one. But I just keep this one. Of course, I have my disadvantages. What? Target character. I can read many books. I can do whatever I want. I was not brought up here. I don't share. I don't know the nursery rhymes. I didn't eat the same sweets you did or so. But I try to do my best. You will always have broader vocabulary, no question. Even if I learn new words, I tend to go back to the old ones, because it's just, you know, the one that's in my active one for 20 years, I don't swap it for something that I just learned. And then the most important, phrasal verbs. You learn the phrasal verbs whenever you are C1 or C2. Obviously, it was the latest time in my life, and that's why I was like, oh, okay, if I can say it in any other ways, I just don't struggle with that one, and I put Thompson and Martinet away. And that's the same with the idioms. So what I think is that, and what actually my Irish colleagues told me this summer, is that in their opinion, a perfect school is where there is a very good balance between native and non-native teachers. So they give, so the schools can give the biggest variety of teachers that they can. Okay, and the most important thing about all of us is that we all love teaching English. Thank you so much.